Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tune. Today we're going to be working on a Honda Civic that got dropped off yesterday. Well, it didn't get dropped off yesterday. It actually came in for a dyno tune yesterday. And we had some stuff that we had to finalize on the car before we were ready to tune it. So car got dropped off, not running. The kid actually just built the motor. This is like a brand new engine. Hasn't really been ran at all, but he did install some Viterra pistons and like the eBay rods. And like I said, just kind of brought it by for a tune. Still had the stock injectors in it when he brought it by, so we had to swap out the injectors, and it also still had the stock fuel pump. So we swapped both of those, and we had to fix some other little odds and ends things, like run all the vacuum lines for the turbo. So we had to run, you know, the reference line from the turbo to the wastegate here. We also had to run the vacuum line from the blow-off valve to the intake manifold, so we ended up just running that for him. And then also had to cap off like the PCV line because this still had like the factory PCV stuff hooked up. I usually like to cap off or run the PCV stuff open to atmosphere, just like the valve cover here. Or if you don't run it to atmosphere, you can run it to a catch can, a vented catch can. So we did that. We threw a set of plugs in it. He said he just put spark plugs in it, but we pulled the plugs and they ended up being a set of the heat range 5, which is the factory heat range spark plug. And with, you know, boost, obviously you gotta try to cool down the spark plug. So we went 2 steps colder with the NGKs and threw a set of BKR7s in, gapped them at 18, and now we got the car pretty much ready to tune. So last night, after working out all these bugs with this thing, we had it strapped down on the dyno, and he had his own wideband actually supplied with the car when he dropped it off. So he didn't have everything kind of hooked up yet. The Honda was also brand new, so we actually registered the Honda for him. When you get a brand new S300, you always have to register it online, just so you can actually upload changes to it and everything. So we had to hook that up, and we got the Honda flashed on. I just threw a base map on it pretty much, and we got it spinning on the roller with his wideband hooked up. And I was like, damn, this tune is like spot on. The base map that I threw on it was spot on, which, you know, isn't usually the case. Like some stuff, like honestly the base map I used for this was for another set of 1000 cc's, which is what this thing has. And I think it was for like an H22. It was not for a single cam. So I expected it to be rich because the H22 is a bigger displacement engine. So I'd use that H22 map just because I always like to start off richer. But we did use that map just to kind of get it started and running. And we found some other things with, the car was like misfiring, and it was not idling without your foot on the gas. So this is a fairly factory intake manifold, or I should say it is bone stock throttle body, bone stock intake manifold. And he actually had the power steering switch, which is the green and, where the hell is it? I don't know if you guys can see this. It is a green and black plug. He had this plugged into the idle air control valve, which this is the power steering switch plug, which the power steering switch pretty much is for if you still retain power steering, when the rack notices movement, it idles the motor up to, you know, make sure that the car doesn't like stall out when you are turning the wheel and putting a load on the engine. It's kind of like when you turn your subwoofers up on your factory alternator and your RPM drops when the bass hits real hard. It's kind of the same concept. So anyways, I had a code for, right when we first fired it up on this H22 map, it was misfiring on 1 cylinder, and it also wasn't idling, and I had 2 codes on the S300. One of them was a fuel injector code, and one of them was idle air control code. So found that power steering switch plugged into there, and it just had the wrong plug plugged in. So we ran the proper plug to the idle air control, which was the blue and black instead of the green and black. Blue and black to there, and then fired it back up, and it was idling on its own then, but it still had the misfire. So I am always a little leery and skeptical on these adapter harnesses for the injectors. They seem to always give me like issues. And that wasn't actually the case, but we flowed these injectors because they're like eBay injectors, and I just wanted to make sure they were like close or even, which they are, so that's a good thing. But one of the prongs on the injectors, when we were plugging in and out the injector, or when the customer was putting them in, they actually bent one of the prongs on the injector. So one of these little prongs was actually bent, so it wasn't making connection into the plug here. So instead of the wires going directly into the center of the connection here, one of them was probably pushing off into the rubber grommet and not making a connection. So in the mix of trying to find that little misfire, it was actually something we overlooked a little bit. We pulled the plugs out to see if the the plug was wet, and it wasn't wet at all, so I assumed it was an injector issue. But we did compression test on the engine, was a little low, but it is a brand new engine, so we're hoping we'll be okay. Then we move on to, we fixed the misfire, we got it running pretty good, and I started rolling the thing on the dyno, and we started laying into boost, and it just would break up really bad, and it wouldn't have any, it didn't make barely any power. It made like 150 horsepower or something last night. And it had the stock map sensor. So the factory map sensor was on this car. And he has a goal of 300 horsepower. And I don't know about any of you, but 10 pounds of boost is about what the factory sensor can read accurately. So if you want to go over 10 pounds of boost, you need to get a larger map sensor, like a Speed Factory 4-bar sensor from huntertune.com. If you pick one of those sensors up, they work up to 40 pounds of boost, so you can run up to 40 pounds of boost instead of being limited to 10 pounds of boost. The customer also stated when he dropped the car off that the wastegate had a 7-pound wastegate spring in it. So I said, okay, well, we can just tune it on the stock map sensor. You probably won't be making that 300 horsepower like you want, but we'll at least get the thing up and running, driving, and making some boost. So that's what we plan on doing. We left a stock sensor in initially, and we didn't touch the wastegate because he had stated that he took it apart and put the spring back in, and it was a 7-pound spring. And we laid into it for the first pull, and it immediately pegged the map sensor on the Hondata, and it did not hit boost cut because I had the cut set at 12, which the sensor can't even read that high, so it's not going to, the map sensor is out of the range of the cut. So if the sensor can only read 11.2 or whatever it is, if you set the cut at 12, it's never going to hit the cut. So I laid into it, and it sounded really pissed. Like, it sounded like it was making some steam, and I'm like, a single cam on less than 10 pounds of boost does not sound like this. So I immediately got out of the gas and was monitoring air fuel this whole time with the wideband that he supplied. I was laying into it, and it was like, I don't know, bottom 12 air fuel, and this thing's on ethanol with no fucking timing in it. So I stayed in it just because it did sound okay, and the air fuel was pretty consistent in the low 12s. So like I said, I kind of stayed in it. And it made like 150 horsepower. So the next pull, I said, let's throw the 4-bar map sensor on it. We threw the 4-bar map sensor on just so we can accurately see how much boost it was actually on. And the second pull, it just kept breaking up and breaking up and breaking up and breaking up. And I'm like, man, the plug gap is fine, the distributor's fine. And when it was breaking up, it was just chooching fuel. And I'm like, what the hell is up with this thing? Because the wideband was reading good. I was cruising the thing, and it was like 14.2, 14.5. It was pretty good air fuel. And then I'd lay into it, and it would go 12.0. And I'm like, what the hell? What's going on here? So we, later in the day, later in the night, I just said, hey man, we're gonna have to dive into this a little bit more. We gotta leave it overnight. Just because I had planned on being out here a certain amount of time yesterday, and the customer was actually late to get here. So it kind of took a lot more of my day to stay out here. In order to get this thing going. So later in the day, after we were kind of scratching our heads like what the hell's going on with this thing, the customer had notified me that the wideband sensor that is in the exhaust, the O2 sensor, was a $30 eBay O2 sensor. It was not a genuine AEM, like one that comes with the wideband. And immediately when he said that, I said, okay, man, we'll come out here tomorrow. I'll actually put my sensor in it and we will go from there. So Trevor just put the sensor in, or I shouldn't say this. There's so much going on with this car. I'm just trying to like tell you guys everything about it. We swapped the 4-bar on. It was breaking up, whatever, but the car was making 16.5 pounds of boost. 16. So one single spring making 16 pounds, I don't know, maybe it's got a really stiff single spring in it, but we may inspect the wastegate just to see what spring is in there, just to make sure. I mean, this thing should be fine on like 16 to 20 pounds of boost, no issues, but also when I laid into that pull, the wastegate opened at 16 pounds and then the boost just freaking fell right off to like 4 pounds. And I think it's because the blow-off valve is too soft. When we came into that higher boost, it blew the blow-off valve open because we don't have the spring at a tighter setting on this Greddy, like eBay knockoff style blow-off valve. They have an adjustment on the top. So we may just have to run this adjustment in to hold the blow-off valve shut at those higher boost levels. Holy fuck, I'm rambling. Another issue with the car is the lower hose is not getting warm. So that is a kind of a fault of maybe the thermostat or the bleed valve, just not opening, allowing the air to bleed out and get coolant, on either side of the thermostat to crack it open. What I usually like to do on a lot of these cars is I like to drill a little hole in the thermostat just to help the coolant flow in and around the thermostat to get it to crack open. So anyways, Trevor is going through and going to tighten the blow-off valve up here. How about them Packers?
Hey.
So anyways, all we did today so far was change the sensor and wideband in the car. And we just spun it up on the dyno a little bit. And what is the air fuel at cruising, Trevor?
Well, fourth gear at about 3,000 RPM, she's about 11.0 to 11.5, so...
11.5 cruising, and the map gradually throws a ton of fuel in when it comes into boost, so I can only imagine how rich this thing was.
Just driving, like, going from first to second to third gear, it was like literally 10.0, 11, 10.0, 10.0,
yeah.
I'm like,
rich.
oh my god.
Yep, but yesterday when I was tuning it with his wideband, it was like 14.7 the whole time. So I'm like, man, weird. So... now we know, now I can actually tune the thing and get it running how it's supposed to. Yeah, hopefully all goes well. We're gonna get the Honda plugged back in, and now that we got a good, reliable wideband in the car, we should be able to make some power and let her rip tater chip. So we got the thing up and running, and when on the Honda now with the dyno wideband hooked up, the accurate run, the more accurate one, I pulled out about 20% of fuel everywhere on the map, and it's still a smidge on the rich side. So we are going to have to just retune this car now with an accurate wideband. I can't stress it enough. I usually only use the AEM Uego widebands because they seem to be the most reliable and the most accurate. I've used some of the cheaper stuff and it just doesn't work with widebands, guys. You got to get, actual stuff, not knockoff Bosch sensors. They clearly don't read right, and you could hurt stuff with an inaccurate wideband. So I currently have VTEC turned off. We're just building some temperature in the motor right now. I will try to probably just adjust the idle a little bit here. I have timing synced on the car already. There we go. Got the idle a little bit better there. We'll just cruise on it a little bit and see what kind of air fuels we are running everywhere else on the map. we had a lean spot right on takeoff, and now we have another lean spot kind of right up in this area. So we're just going to try to take care of this. I always try to do that with cars, is I try to get the takeoff. The takeoff part of the tune always, you know, has issues on certain cars, so I always try to do that right away. And then once the car gets rolling, you can start tuning cruising and everything else. But the takeoff is also very important to drivability. So this tune is pretty lean now that I added all that fuel, or took all that fuel out of it. Thermostat issue right here, because if you go out underneath the hood with the 206-degree temp, it doesn't, the lower radiator hose is still cold, so that's why I suspect stuck thermostat or something. But he said, the guy said it's a brand new thermostat, but who knows. As long as we're under 210 or so, we'll be all right. And this car doesn't seem to want to get above 206 on the dyno. So. All right, guys. So I got cruising pretty lined out, running good, and we're gonna do a pull without VTEC here, see what the boost comes up to. And now that we have an accurate wideband, I can actually tune the fueling. So, yeah, third gear rip, no VTEC, and I'm gonna record a data log here. Record. I don't think we made any boost. So go to the graph here. Yeah, we only made 1 pound of boost. Actually, it came up on 6 pounds and then fell right off. So something's going on. You can see here, we're at 6 pounds of boost at 4,500, and 5,300 we're at 2.2. So that's why the air fuel actually got leaner as the pull went higher up in the RPM, because at lower boost on the tune I have it set up to run a leaner air fuel to help spool the turbo. So yeah, you can definitely see that it just kind of lost boost. That's why the air fuel kind of did that, because the way that the map is set up, it should deliver more fuel with more boost in RPM as the engine makes power, you know. So we're gonna check over the car and see what's going on with the boost situation. So we are proceed.
Oh, hella shaft line, this motherfucker.
Really? You hear it? So we're inspecting some of the stuff under the hood here just to see why this thing's not coming up on boost. And we're just inspecting, we're pulling the air filter off of the turbo here just to inspect it. just because sometimes when turbos, you know, fail or get issues, they do weird boost stuff. Which the turbo does have some shaft play, but I don't think that's the cause of it. I think we just need to run this blow-off valve down literally like all the way, just because I think it's blowing open. And I bet you if T-bag stood right here when I did a pull, this would be just blowing boost out all the time, just because these things from the, you know, out of the package, they're just really loose and they're set up for like 5 pounds of boost. All right, guys, so we got the blow-off valve tightened down, and we're gonna leave the air filter off just because I don't want the air filter to be a restriction for tuning on the dyno. And T-bag doesn't like the air filter.
Fuck air filter.
We like to go through the desert with no air filter. I would. Fuck, my turbo truck never ran an air filter, and I drove that thing through the fucking junk.
The old hatch.
Yeah, never had a filter.
Party or
Right. VS Racing turbos they just eat everything. Whether it's ice, sand, rocks, birds, small squirrels, or squirrels and small birds. It'll just suck them all up, and then you'll be Gucci. Didn't log. God damn it. So it's still really not coming up on boost very well. I almost wonder if the turbo's bad.
Hello!
So what do we find, Trevor? We've been trying to diagnose this boost issue where it's just not building any boost.
That's right here.
And we did notice that the car had a pretty bad exhaust leak, and I kind of just figured like it was because this guy used those stupid cardboard gaskets that they give you with these damn eBay turbo kits. I'll even show you an example of what I don't use. I throw them in the garbage because this thing literally ran for like a total of 10 minutes so far, and it's already got one of them blown out. So where is an example here? Thought I had one somewhere. Don't worry, I'll grab the real gasket maker. Thought I had one sitting somewhere.
They probably threw it away because they're junk.
Yeah, I literally probably threw it away. But if you're going to use any gasket, at least use the multi-layer steel gaskets, not those cardboard look-alike fancy that you think they're fancy, because they're not. They're just junk. They're straight up garbage. So we're gonna take, honestly, I'd rather run no gasket at all, which I do on a lot of stuff. I don't usually run a gasket between the manifold and the turbo, and I don't usually run one between the wastegate and the manifold either. Just because a lot of gaskets, they just, you know, they blow out with back pressure. But yeah, if you have a leak before your turbo, so if you have a cracked manifold or an exhaust manifold leak, it makes a huge difference on boost. It makes a big difference on spool time, and it makes a big difference on clearly just making boost at all. And we're also probably going to have to inspect the wastegate here, because the wastegate, When we put compressed air from the shop, I think we put almost 60 PSI of compressed air through the vacuum line onto the gate, and the gate's not opening. So we're gonna have to inspect that as well and just kind of see what's going on with it. So once we get the wastegate off of the car, we will pick up and show you. Oh, the wastegate's not even tight. Okay. Well, we'll start by ripping the gasket out of it.
Yeah.
And then get the bolts actually
good.
Guten tight.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, like I said, once we get the wastegate off the car, we'll show you the blown out gasket. It's actually blown top and bottom, not just one side or another. So, yeah, we'll pick up with y'all in a minute.
Hold that bitch.
Just take that one all the way out. You got it?
Maybe. Oh, big ass spring. Body frame looks fine.
Yeah, and the spring doesn't seem that stiff.
Not torn.
This is the gasket that we just pulled out of that car. You can see on the top it's blown, and on the bottom, leaking exhaust out before the turbo. All right, guys, so we got the wastegate back on and fixed the majority of the leaking around the wastegate. I think the turbo gasket is also blown or partially blown, because if you put your hand down here, you can still feel a smidge bit of exhaust coming out from what feels like the front of the turbo manifold now. But we did just do a pull on the dyno just to make sure that the boost was gonna come up, and it actually hit the boost cut at 18 pounds. So we did fix the not making boost issue. Now we're making too much, and we have to figure out why, because the wastegate spring is a small spring. It's not like a super large spring or anything like that. But when we put compressed air into the wastegate, normally when you put compressed air into the gate, you should be able to hear the valve open and close. And last night the wastegate opened once, and it was around 16 pounds or so. And this time, 18 pounds didn't even open. So, like I said, if we put compressed air right into the wastegate, so if we just take the air compressor,
You have to hold it here.
and we just kind of hold it here, just fucking tap that thing, not much. Yeah, it blows the line off. Like, it doesn't open the gate at all. It just blows air around the line. So something's wrong with the wastegate. Why it's not pushing the diaphragm open, I'm not sure. So we'll have to pull it off again and diagnose it. What's up with these junk Hondas lately?
I don't know.
I feel like we were out here on Saturday for 6 hours with one car, and we feel like we got nowhere with it because it got dropped off and it just had a bunch of problems. And you know, sometimes you just got to keep fighting and keep battling through these issues, but one thing at a time, right? And maybe one day it'll make some power. Hopefully today. All right, guys, so I think we might have found the issue here. So these fittings, when you get them from eBay or CX Racing or whatever, they have it's like a banjo style fitting. So the vacuum line will go onto, you know, the bolt like this. And then when the air comes in through the vacuum line or the boost source, it goes through the banjo bolt and then out into the wastegate. So the problem is we pulled this apart because I'm like, what the hell? We can push the wastegate with our fingers, and the spring isn't that heavy. It's probably 7 to 10 pounds. But the issue that was going on here was that when we would put air into the wastegate, it wasn't actually getting into the wastegate. It was like plugged somewhere. So we took this fitting off and we looked in the end of it. And there was actually metal burrs blocking the frickin' bolt. So there was no way that air was going to get in there. So we just took a little drill bit and drilled it out, and now we should be ready for boost, I hope.
Maybe.
So we're just going to get this back on and try it again. All right, guys, so we actually have the orange single cam turbo Civic off of the dyno now, and there's a reason for that. Obviously, we fixed the wastegate issues, and we got the car to hold 7 pounds of boost where the wastegate spring should have been in the first place after we fixed, there was the banjo bolt. Did we tell them that?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
So anyways, one of the banjo bolts that goes to the bottom of the gate was plugged with machining metal. Like they didn't clear out the banjo bolt. So what we did is we took the banjo bolt, we drilled it out, and then put it back in to fix so the wastegate could actually open properly. Once we did that, the turbo came up on 7 pounds of boost, came into VTEC, started making horsepower, and then the turbo fell right off and only made 2 pounds of boost at the top of the pull. So, and it sounded like something was screeching, something just wasn't happy. And to find out, the turbo actually is failed. So, these eBay turbos are pretty hit and miss, guys. Sometimes you get lucky and you can get one that works all right, but you know, that wasn't the case with this one. This one has some pretty bad shaft play. It actually had some shaft play yesterday before we even really started tuning on the thing, but it just progressively got worse as we drove and ran the car. So unfortunate. I feel like everything else on this turbo kit seems pretty nice. The manifold seems pretty decent. You know, obviously the intercooler piping is kind of hard to mess up. So I mean, honestly, if he just changes the turbo out and comes back, we can probably finish this car up. We did get a lot of other issues sorted out with the car, but at the end of the day, it does suck, you know, just kind of having bad luck with some of this stuff and not being able to get the car down the road. But anyways, that's the name of the game sometimes. You gotta keep fighting, and eventually the cars let up and you can have some fun with them. But sometimes it takes a little bit to be able to do that. But me and Trevor have been out here for the last couple days, honestly, pulling 10, 12-hour days, just trying to get a lot of these hot rods running. And it just really sucks when cars show up that aren't ready. I'm always down to help out appreciative people at the end of the day. Like, we had a car here on Saturday, which I should have filmed a lot of it. I didn't. There was a car here Saturday that we worked on, and it just had issue after issue after issue after issue. We would fix one thing, then another thing would pop up, then another thing, and another thing, and another thing. And it just takes up time at the end of the day. And if somebody wants to bring the car to the shop and has a lot of these issues kind of coming up, you just have to expect to pay for the time that you're using. So, I mean, I just try to get that through people's heads before they, you know, come here, because dyno tuning is one price and fixing a car is another price.
And without sounding like a dick, if that's not the case, then take it home and fix it yourself, because our time is not free.
Yeah, and it kind of is what it is. And like I said, I feel almost bad at the end of the day, because you give back a car that's not 100% right. Who knows what that person's going to do with the car afterwards, and then blame us for whatever the fuck we did. You know what I mean? So I try to be as honest and upfront with people as I can, and just try to show them every little detail that we're doing, why we're doing it, make these videos for you guys, etc., etc. So, but like I said, at the end of the day, my girlfriend's mad at me because all I do is work on stuff, and if I'm not getting paid for it, she just has even more reason to be mad at me, kind of thing, right?
Right.
So,
but that's the problem. Like I said, we should do this live stream thing. But the problem is I've done it before, but you want to do a build, you spend all this money on the car,
and then buying all the parts.
all the shit parts that you think are expensive, buy a BWR manifold.
Yeah,
Compared to a CX Racing, you're not buying the right parts. Not saying CX Racing isn't bad or is bad, but I'm just saying you could be dumping thousands and thousands of dollars. But then that goes back into when you spend a lot of money on a right wire harness that's complete junk.
Or yeah, there was a guy that came here the other day with a Wireworks harness, and it was pinned wrong in like 10 different places. The map sensor was pinned wrong, the distributor was pinned wrong. He said he had to fix some other stuff too on the harness before he even got here. And that just says like you can spend thousands of dollars on parts and still have issues.
Right.
Or you, yeah,
it
sucks.
You don't have the knowledge to fix it, but you don't have the money to pay someone else to fix it. It's like,
so you got to have one or the other type of thing.
Right.
You either got to have the knowledge and ambition to fix it yourself and not have to pay somebody like me and Trevor to help, or you got to just kind of buck up and do it yourself. And then if issues arise when stuff goes on the dyno, you got to be prepared for that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you gotta be prepared for when something gets strapped down on a dyno. Everything can go.
Yeah. The thing is when you yeah, and that's the thing with this Civic that we just did. The engine was brand new. It didn't even have any miles on it.
Right.
And it's like, well, we could throw this thing on the dyno and it could spin a bearing. I don't know what your clearances are. It's different if you try to hold somebody accountable for parts that you put on or installed versus if you held somebody liable for, you know what I mean?
Their parts that they bought.
Yeah. Like you can't go pointing fingers and blaming people for parts that failed that you purchased. Like if you bought the parts, the thing is too, is if you buy from like CX Racing or eBay or anything like that, you don't have the customer support and, you know, somebody to get a hold of if something goes wrong. Like maybe you can call CX Racing and they will replace your turbo, but I mean, if you get a turbo from me and I install it and I put it on and something goes wrong, then it's a little different than if you bought a turbo from me, put it on yourself. I don't know how you installed it. I don't know. It's just, it sucks to try to balance out the nice guy aspect and the businessman aspect of doing this as a job. It's tough. And like I said, I don't want to burn bridges with people and I don't want to make people upset, and I want to be fair with everybody, but at the end of the day, I can't be spending 12 hours on a car and not getting paid anything. You know what I mean? Like it's give and take type of thing. So I don't know where the hell this is going, but we have a ton of projects that we got to do, and hopefully we'll be filming some more. There's a lot of cars that have been in and out of the dyno that I haven't filmed much with. May make a video tomorrow. If you guys made it all the way to the end of this video and you want to see all the other cars just doing some dyno pulls and not much talking, drop it down in the comments and let me know if you want to see that or if you don't want to see it. That would be a thing that I could make a video for you guys, or tomorrow we can come out here and film whatever the hell else we're doing. I'm trying to get better at filming stuff, but life's just been so hectic with work and trying to get these cars done. Like, I just want to throw my camera in the garbage sometimes because I'm just trying to focus on getting shit in and out of the shop. And I hate shit sitting here. I hate shit that comes in and it's got issues and we got to wait for parts. We have another car that's outside right now that we worked on the day before, the one with all the wiring issues that came in, and we got all the stuff done on the car. Everything good to go. Car ran beautifully, but he never bled the clutch before he dropped it off. So we bled the clutch, and then after bleeding the clutch, we noticed the slave cylinder was pouring fluid because it overextended onto the clutch fork. Because the guy didn't notify me, there was not a throwout bearing in the transmission. So we put this whole car together, already had the engine and transmission installed into the car before he brought it, and we got everything around the engine done, running great, about to tune it, and then find out that there's no throwout bearing. So we have to pull all the stuff we just did back off of the car to go put it right back on and install the throwout bearing that I wasn't notified of. So at the end of the day, you got to pay for that stuff, because if you didn't notify me or it was just a mistake or whatever, that's still consuming a lot of my time and Trevor's time. So I don't know. Yep.
Balls and wieners, the Packers are like, what are they, 4-0?
No, they're 5-1.
5-1?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. They just won that one yesterday. So that's 5-1. Yup. That's what I do in my free time. Go Packers. I do anything for the Packers.
See you later, guys. Have a great night and a better tomorrow.
We saw.
Hopefully we will have a better tomorrow than we've had the last couple days, because it's been a shit show the last couple days.
What are we even doing tomorrow?
I don't know. Hopefully you can tune into a video and find out. See you later.
Boosting me out. Just kidding.